Managing Unknown Contacts, or in other words, MUC, is a program pioneered by Craig Douglas of ShipWorks. The sole purpose of this program is learning how to deal with those initial interactions with somebody that you do not know, aka a potential threat. Now, when it comes to self-defense, we have a tendency to really only practice the physical skills. Striking, grappling, weapon entanglement, you get the picture. The problem is those physical skills only come into play if we actually get into the fight to begin with, which when it comes to self-defense, we're trying to avoid that at all costs. So in today's video, Aaron Giannetti of Knife Control Concepts is going to break down MUC for us and explain just how important these soft skills are when it comes to self-defense. And essentially, if we're able to maintain our space, if we're able to understand the variables at play, and if we're able to utilize our voice properly, we can avoid the fights altogether.
This is technically conversational distance.
Right.
It's not necessarily a good thing, but this is conversational distance. This is not...
This is normal...
Yeah, hey, this is people having a conversation, right, in some case. This can honestly be a little weird.
Yeah.
For some people, right? And then when you get into other countries, you get into some European countries, Middle Eastern countries, things like that, conversational distance actually is kind of like here sometimes, right? And this is normal. Understanding what the timing is of that, Craig does a really phenomenal drill where he actually sets up where he can reach out and touch somebody with two hands. And then the drill is very simple where you're gonna try to stop me from touching you before you can touch you, right? And so I reach out and I touch, you try to stop. And then he just takes one step. And it's the same thing. I'm gonna try to touch you and you're gonna try to stop me.
Yeah.
Right. And so one step can make a big difference. Now he'll do like 5 out of 5 on both and there's some other things. So he will take that a lot farther than I just took it. What he's showing you is the difference in nuance between this
and just one step
and how starting to baseline some things. So the first piece of the puzzle in my opinion is to understand how important every 5 to 6 inches can be when it comes to dealing with a threat and the reactionary time that you're going to have in that gap, or the reactionary gap as it goes into it. So that's like one piece of the puzzle. Other things you start looking at, like from a distance perspective, is now we start looking at like, can I judge you as a threat? Because that's going to be a big piece of the puzzle too, is I might not think you're a threat at all. I might have already done an assessment.
Right. Like what are the circumstances that were, like,
right.
Am I pissed off at you and I'm screaming at you, or we're at a store just spitting the shit?
Yeah. Because if I come up to you and you know, you view me as non-threatening, right? So maybe I'm a, you know, mid-50s, adorable, very sweet female walking up, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you've already said 120 pounds. There's nothing threatening about that person, but that person might be this person, right? As it goes into it. Do you view them as a threat? Because that's going to be a problem too, because even if I'm this far away, but you've already decided I'm no longer a threat, you start letting your defenses down, you don't position yourself right, you may let yourself look over into the distance and take your eyes off of me and get away from me, so that can be problematic.
Checking my phone. Or
check your phone, all that type of stuff, right? So I would look at it this way, like if I absolutely know you're a threat, for me personally, there's gonna be like three context things that I really need to clarify, and it will change for all 3 of these. One, am I by myself, am I with my wife, am I with my kids? Right, because those are 3 different spectrums. Like,
I agree.
if I'm just with my wife, I can manage and she can get away or something along those lines. She's a fully capable human that can fight and move and all that type of stuff. So like, there's one thing there. Kids, different story. I gotta buy more time. I have to be a little more protective of boundaries and zones. I am gonna be split attention because I do need to worry about those things. So like, that'll change things a little bit. And I would say it would change the timeline of things, the distance of things. Now all of a sudden, like at 6 feet, I may be comfortable with my hands out here, giving you verbal commands, you know, trying to manage my space and moving. But if I'm with my kids, that might change.
Right.
I might be a lot more aggressive about the positions that I'm getting into, looking towards things. I might rush you and preemptively strike and all those type of things. So in a nutshell, and again, like it's gonna be situation, like context dependent.
It's very vague.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, like if I have the space, I do want my hands up to be prepared for things, but I don't want to be overreaching. So I have a little bit of a bend in my arms. My palms are like forward towards you. I'm making eye contact. I'm understanding verbalization. I'm not trying to necessarily escalate you, right? But if we've gotten to a point where I don't think I can back you down and get out of this anyway, then I want to make sure, it's out of the picture as far as it goes. So the biggest thing, I don't want to get ambushed. So we start taking, like, if I'm going to be moving and trying to clear space, I'm not necessarily, I guess, trying to take more space. I want to maintain. So if we're at 6 feet, I'd rather stay at 6 feet.
Right.
And instead of you moving towards me and me taking a step backwards, you move towards me, and I'm gonna start taking off to a 90 this way so that I can start to survey more of the area without losing focus of you.
Or if you do have to get in, you have a better opportunity to come in.
Yeah, so you can play that game, right? So it's understanding angles as far as it goes. My hands are up out here, I'm using verbalization. If we've already assumed that you are a threat, like I'm gonna fucking kill you, like those words came out of the mouth, I cannot leave, I can't de-escalate, we've already checked off all the boxes as far as all that type of stuff goes, we're fighting. I'm just looking for the best possible fucking entry at this point, right? So I'm gonna do a quick assessment. Do I have tools on me? Do I need them? So I usually carry a knife. I usually have a firearm if I can legally carry it. So that's going to be I would like to think I train for this to be the first thought in my head, which is, are these tools necessary? If they're not necessary, then what's my main entry going to be? I can't leave, I'm going out, right? So it's either we're at this base and you're going to back off of me and allow me to leave, or we're fighting, and the second you take a step past that, I'm not waiting, and I'm not even playing the preemptive game of words and this and bang and doing this type stuff. It's if you have already identified yourself as a threat, and we're going, right? And it's that case in mind.
Now let's do it in the sense of game. Yeah, if you view me as let's say something about me is off, right?
Sure.
We haven't argued or anything yet, but something's off, and I'm just creeping in on that distance. Maybe you don't have space to go. How do you change your behavior then?
Yeah.
At that point, to where I don't feel like I need to punch this guy, but I'm definitely watching their hands, or I'm how
so
does
that would then
change?
then that comes into I think that falls back into the category, in my opinion, of where Craig would take his muck. I'm making eye contact, that I'm here, right? And then it starts coming into ask, command, demand, right? And so it's if I'm a little bit off, if I'm in an elevator, we're a little bit off, and you're kind of eyeing me down, and I'm going to make eye contact with you, be in this case, I can't leave, I can't disengage as far as it goes.
He is pretty handsome.
I don't necessarily want to engage, and that's one of the things I think that I picked up, one of the major things I picked up from Craig is I don't want to engage you in conversation and invite you to move towards me.
Right.
So communication becomes a huge part of it. So what do I want from you? How do I explain what I want from you in the clearest possible way so that you cannot interpret it any other way? And then I have to reinforce that boundary. So one of the things that, here's clear communication, or an issue with clear communication could be something like, back up! Right. Where it's okay, you're telling me to back up, but you're walking fucking towards me. It's a little bit of confusing, I'm mixing patterns. Whereas here's hey, stay right where you're at! You can't fight that. Right. There's no way you can misinterpret that.
Right.
Stay where you're at.
Step in,
don't move. Right. Back up, all those type things, but I'm matching my body language with whatever's going on.
I think that is huge.
And remember, as humans, we take a lot of stuff from body language.
Right.
I can't be looking at you going, you're making me nervous, back up, and then moving towards you, and it's okay, maybe you are, but it's really confusing if you're so fucking nervous.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah,
man?
why are you walking in? And then you might just be off.
Right.
Some of us are just socially awkward. So you might just be off, but now all of a sudden, if I become threatening, you may become defensive.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, I create
this guy just attacked me on the elevator, and I have no idea why.
So baseline, the whole idea of ask, command, demand, or that type of idea is hey man, step back, right? And then you either listen or you don't. And then as you start moving forward again, hey, I said step back, back up, right? And then you're just pop, you move up your ladder there, right? And then another beautiful part, and again, I'm gonna give credit where it's due, because a lot of the way that I focus on communication, de-escalation, whatever you want to call it, comes from the Buck program of Craig, is the idea of being able to go up and come back down. I think a lot of self-defense systems have a tendency to only ramp up. Yeah, hey man, back up.
Right.
I said back up.
Right.
Back up. And it's motherfucker, back up. And it just keeps going this direction, right? Where it's one of those things that, again, if it's just off, or if you do start actually listening, and I go, hey man, can you back up? You're making me a little uncomfortable. Back. Hey, I said back up. And you do geez, man, what do you need? Yeah, right? It's a little weird.
Bring it back and
chill. Where are we at? Yeah, you know what I mean? One of those, it's fine. Yeah. That's cool. I'm gonna go this way, and you're making me uncomfortable. Go that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Being able to go up and then come back down. I think that comes through practice. So to summarize this with all this, if I know you're a threat, you're showing obvious threats, and I cannot leave, you have to check all those boxes. If you can leave, just fucking leave.
Yeah, just take your kids, whatever, and get out of there.
Buy them a beer. Yeah. Pull something. And again, Craig does an amazing job with this stuff. Do all that stuff. But if I can't do any of that, I've done all of that, you keep taking my space, and you keep threatening, or I don't have an exit to get into it. If I'm alone, I'm gonna do whatever dumb shit that Aaron Jerry does.
I've been spending 15 years prepping for it.
Do you know that I have always wanted to do a flying knee? I've always wanted to, in the middle of a fight, enough to go, what? And flying knee somebody into it, like Tony Jaa style.
And then just add it to your training. I did this at an elevator once, man, it worked.
So it's obviously the best technique in the world, because I pulled it off one time against a drunk guy that wasn't paying attention yet. That, to me, it's I don't want to fight, so I'm going to give some boundaries, but if I've run out of space,
Yeah, no choice.
I'm going. And I'm going with what I'm good at. I think that's a big thing too. It's like, it might be a right, it might be a kick, whatever, but telling somebody what they have to do, I think is a little disingenuous. It's like, what are you good at?
Right.
You know what I mean? If you are a Division I collegiate wrestler, double leg the shit out of them. They're not going to do anything about it. You know what I mean? So it's like, do your thing, whatever makes the most sense. Now, if I don't know that you're a threat, things are just off, but I also still can't leave, well, then that's, you know, where's my space? Taking my angles, trying to avoid the idea of like looking behind me, which then exposes. I saw a great video the other day, I say great video, unfortunately, where it's just what you're talking about. We're in a fight. We're verbally like, kind of like flexing on each other. You turn, dude pulls out a knife and stabs the dude right in the fucking neck and starts stabbing him and stabbing him and stabbing him. It's like, again,
why?
If you knew we were in a fight, don't be this fucking close, and certainly don't look away.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly when he grabbed the fucking knife and went in to stab at him. Keep yourself at your distance. Try to avoid looking and turning this way, so get an assessment of what's going on by taking your angles, right? Use your verbal commands. Be willing to go up and then come back down. And the last piece of the puzzle, and I think this is one that people have a tendency to overlook, and I'm saying that from experience. 15 years in, I'm just starting to kind of understand this concept, is you are more likely to be successful in de-escalating and managing an unknown contact or setting boundaries or verbal judo, whatever you want to call it, if you are confident in your physical abilities if it doesn't work.
That's very true.
And a lot of people, I think, miss that because you go, well, I want to teach people to keep their space and to back people up with their words. And it's like, okay, but
what if that fails?
It's a fallacy. It's a blanket. Right? And you're hoping to,
I'm just trying to buy time that I can keep doing this and get the hell out of it.
So I'm going to be a lot more confident if I know how to fight. I know how to move. I know how to access things. I am physically fit enough to turn around and run. Well, I'm going to be that much better composed under pressure and be able to actually manage this conversation to not fight people if I'm really good at fighting people. Yeah. Whereas if I don't and I'm starting to get nervous and now my nervous jitters because I'm like, holy shit, what if this doesn't work?
I'm about to be in my first fight ever.
Yeah, and it just gets people going the other way. So, I've said this before. People that are highly trained in violence generally get to choose violence. People that are not trained in violence usually have to use violence. And understanding that perspective of it is huge. And honestly, just recently in the last year is when I started realizing like, oh man, like I would be so much better at de-escalating based off my confidence that if I don't de-escalate, I still know what to do here. Right. Or at least have an idea in some form of fashion.
So there you have it. Go train, people. That's it.
God, it's like the simplest answer in the world. Just keep training.
Just train, dude. You get a good workout, you get to learn shit, have fun, go train.
And you look good naked.